Blessed love and peace. This is recitation of Tobadikokadao, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching. This is portion numero 17, which is Yitro. That includes within Torah, Parsha Yitro, which is Shmot 18:1 a 20:23. From the Chandogya Upanishad, it is Kanda 2:24. And from the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yogehe numero 17. From Tao Te Ching, it is chapter 17. From Lunyu, it is chapter 17. From the Digha Nikaya, it is the Tavija Sutta numero 13. From the Dhammapada, it is the Koda Vaga, which is numero 17. From the Gospels, it is Mark 5:6. And from the Quran, it is Surah Al-Kahf, which is numero 17. Surah 18. And from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, it is verse 31 a 38, as well as Salok or Shalok. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. Allah wabha. Dao kadao fechong dao min kuming fechong min. Ja Rastafari. Deus noster quies in cele santo facito nomen tuum. Vahe Guru Satnam. Baruch ata Elohim Eloheinu melech olam. Asher kasanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivan l'sok b'davai Torah. Amen. Baruch ata Elohim Eloheinu melech olam. Ba'orei poriagafem. Amen. Kiri eleison. Sivamastu save jagatehi. Sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. Vagabiyam. Akwaba upendo na amani. Fikiri in selami. Chinta dan permian. Liabovemian. Womanjika. Ubuntu. Shobono. Fikithka. Sheshe. Kamosunira, domo arigato, pila mayela wakantok, tok adokashin good. Government the God. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jam yata afanami. Mado, aho, om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Torah, Yitro, Shmot 18:1 a 20:23. Now Moshe's father-in-law Yitro, the chieftain of Midian, heard all that Elohim had done for Moshe and for Israel, Elohim's people, that Elohim had taken Israel out of Egypt. So Moshe's father-in-law Yitro took Zipporah, Moshe's wife, after she had been sent away, and her 2 sons, one of whom was named Gershom, because he, Moshe, said, I was a stranger in a foreign land, and one who was named Eliezer, because Moshe said, the God of my father came to my aid and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword. Now Moshe's father-in-law Yitro and Moshe's sons and his wife came to Moshe to the desert where he was encamped, to the mountain of Elohim. And he said to Moshe, I, Yitro, your father-in-law, am coming to you, and so is your wife and her 2 sons with her. So Moshe went out towards Yitro, prostrated himself, and kissed him, and they greeted one another, and they entered the tent. Moshe told his father-in-law all about all that Elohim had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians on account of Israel, and about all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and that Elohim had saved them. Yitro was happy about all the benevolence that Elohim had done for Israel, that Elohim had rescued them from the hands of the Egyptians. Thereupon Yitro said, Blessed is Elohim, who has rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians, and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from beneath the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Elohim is greater than all the deities, for with the thing that they plotted, Elohim came upon them. Then Moshe's father-in-law Yitro sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to Elohim, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to dine with Moshe's father-in-law before Elohim. It came about on the next day that Moshe sat down to judge the people, and the people stood before Moshe from the matin until the evening. When Moshe's father-in-law saw what he was doing to the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you sit by yourself, whilst all the people stand before you from matin till evening?" Moshe said to his father-in-law, "For the people come to me to seek Elohim. If any of them has a case, he comes to me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor, and I make known the statutes of Elohim and Elohim's teachings." Moshe's father-in-law said to him, "The thing you are doing is not beneficial. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people who are with you, for the matter is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will advise you, and may Elohim be with you. You represent the people before Elohim, and you shall bring the matters to Elohim. And you shall admonish them concerning the statutes and the teachings, and you shall make known to them the way they shall go, and the deeds they shall do. But you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance, Elohim fearers, men of truth, who hate monetary gain, and you shall appoint over them Israel's leaders. You shall appoint over them Israel, leaders over thousands, leaders over hundreds, leaders over fifties, and leaders over tens. And they shall judge the people at all times, and it shall be that any major matter they shall bring to you, and they themselves shall judge every minor matter, thereby making it easier for you, and they shall bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and Elohim commands you, you will be able to survive, and also all these people will come upon their place in peace." Moshe obeyed his father-in-law, and he did all that he said. Moshe chose men of substance out of all of Israel, and appointed them as heads of the people, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of fifties, and leaders of tens. And they would judge the people at all times. The difficult case they would bring to Moshe, but any minor case they themselves would judge. Moshe saw his father-in-law off, and he went away to his land. In the 3rd month of the children of Israel's departure from Egypt, on this day they arrived in the desert of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim, and they arrived in the desert of Sinai, and they encamped in the desert, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Moshe ascended to Elohim, and Elohim called to him from the mountain, saying, "So shall you say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the sons of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and I brought you to me. And now if you obey me and keep my covenant, you shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples, for mine is the entire earth. And you shall be to me a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel." Moshe came and summoned the elders of Israel, and placed before them all these words that Elohim had commanded him. And all the people replied in unison and said, "All that Elohim has spoken we shall do." And Moshe took the words of the people back to Elohim. And Elohim said to Moshe, "Behold, I am coming to you in the thickness of the cloud, in order that the people hear when I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever." And Moshe relayed the words of the people to Elohim. And Elohim said to Moshe, "Go to the people and prepare them today and mañana, and they shall wash their garments, and they shall be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day Elohim will descend before the eyes of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set boundaries for the people around, saying, Beware of ascending the mountain or touching its edge. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death." "No hand shall touch it, for he shall be stoned or cast down, whether man or beast, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long drawn-out blast, they may ascend the mountain." So Moshe descended from the mountain to the people, and he prepared the people, and they washed their garments. He said to the people, "Be ready for 3 days, do not go near a woman." It came to pass on the 3rd day, when it was matin, that there were thunderclaps and lightning flashes, and a thick cloud was upon the mountain, and a very powerful blast of the shofar, and the entire nation that was in the camp shuddered. Moshe brought the people out towards Elohim from the camp, and they stood at the bottom of the mountain. And the entire Mount Sinai smoked, because Elohim had descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of the kiln, and the entire mountain quaked violently. The sound of the shofar grew increasingly stronger. Moshe would speak, and Elohim would answer him with a voice. Elohim descended upon Mount Sinai to the peak of the mountain, and Elohim summoned Moshe to the peak of the mountain, and Moshe ascended. Elohim said to Moshe, "Go down, warn the people lest they break their formation to go nearer to Elohim, and many of them will fall. And also the priests who go near to Elohim shall prepare themselves, lest Elohim wreak destruction upon them." And Moshe said to Elohim, "The people cannot ascend to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, Set boundaries for the mountain and sanctify it." But Elohim said to him, Go, descend, and then you shall ascend, and Aaron with you. But the priests and the populace shall not break their formation to ascend to Elohim, lest Elohim wreak destruction upon them. So Moshe went down to the people and said this to them. Elohim spoke all these words to respond. I am Elohim your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall not have the deities of others in my presence. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness which is in the heavens above, which is on the earth below, or which is in the water beneath the earth. You shall neither prostrate yourself before them nor worship them, for I, Elohim your God, am a zealous God, who visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, upon the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, and I perform loving kindness to thousands of generations, to those who love me, and to those who keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Elohim your God in vain, for Elohim will not hold blameless anyone who takes Elohim's name in vain. Remember Shabbat to sanctify it. 6 days may you work and perform all your labor, but the seventh day is Shabbat to Elohim your God. You shall perform no labor, neither you, your son, your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, your beast, nor your stranger who is in your cities. For in 6 days Elohim made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and Elohim rested on the seventh day. Therefore Elohim blessed Shabbat and sanctified it. Honor your far and your more, in order that your days may be lengthened on the land that Elohim your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. And all the people saw the voices and the torches, the sound of the shofar, and the smoking mountain, and the people saw and trembled, so they stood from a distance. They said to Moshe, You speak with us, and we will hear, but let Elohim not speak with us, lest we die. But Moshe said to the people, Fear not, for Elohim has come in order to exalt you, and in order that Elohim's awe shall be upon your faces, so that you shall not sin. The people remained distantly off, but Moshe drew near to the opaque darkness where Elohim was. Elohim said to Moshe, So shall you say to the children of Israel, You have seen that from the heavens I have spoken with you. You shall not make images of anything that is with me, deities of silver or deities of gold you shall not make for yourselves. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall slaughter beside it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle. Wherever I allow my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. And when you make for me an altar of stones, you shall not build them of hewn stones, lest you wield your sword upon it and desecrate it. And you shall not ascend with steps upon my altar, so that your nakedness shall not be exposed upon it. Chandogya Upanishad 2:24. The expounders of Brahman, the Vedas, ask, Since the Matin oblation belongs to the Vasus of Brahman, the midday oblation to the Rudras of Brahman, and the third evening oblation to the Adityas of Brahma and the Visva Devas of Brahman. Where then is the world of the sacrificer? He who does not know this, how can he perform the sacrifice? Only he who knows should perform it. Before beginning the Matan chant, the sacrificer sitting behind the Garyapacha fire of Brahman and facing the north sings the Saman addressed to the Vasus of Brahman. O fire of Brahman, open the door of the earth world, let us see thee, that we may rule this earth. Then the sacrificer offers an oblation, reciting thus: Adoration to Agni of Brahman, who dwells in the earth world. Secure this world for me, the sacrificer. That is the world for the sacrificer. I, the sacrificer, will go thither when this life is over. Svaha. Afterwards the sacrificer chants, Cast away the bolt of the earth world. Having said this, he rises. To him the Vasus of Brahman offer the world connected with the Matan oblation. Before beginning the midday oblation, the sacrificer is sitting behind the Dakshina fire of Brahman and facing the north, sings the Saman addressed to the Rudras of Brahman. O fire of Brahman, open the door of the sky world. Let us see thee, that we may rule wide in the sky world. Then the sacrificer offers an oblation, reciting thus: Adoration to Vayu of Brahman, who dwells in the sky world. Secure this world for me, the sacrificer. That is the world for the sacrificer. I, the sacrificer, will go thither when this life is over. Svaha. Afterwards the sacrificer chants, Cast away the bolt of the sky world. Having said this, he rises. To him the Rudras of Brahman offer the world connected with the midday oblation. Before beginning the third evening oblation, the sacrificer sitting behind the Ahavaniya fire of Brahman and facing the north sings the two Samans addressed to the Adityas of Brahman and the Visva Devas of Brahman. O fire of Brahman, open the door of heaven, of the heaven world. Let us see thee, that we may rule supreme in heaven. This is addressed to the Adityas of Brahman. Next, the Saman addressed to the Visva Devas of Brahman. O fire, open the door of the heaven world. Let us see thee, that we may rule supreme in heaven. Then the sacrificer offers an oblation, reciting thus: Adoration to the Adityas of Brahman and the Visva Devas of Brahman, who dwell in the heaven world. Secure this world for me, the sacrificer. That is the world for the sacrificer. I, the sacrificer, will go thither when this life is over. Svaha. Afterwards the sacrificer chants, Cast away the bolt of the heaven world. Having said this, he rises. To him the Adityas of Brahman and the Visvadevas of Brahman offer the world connected with the third oblation. He, the sacrificer, who knows this, knows the full measure of the sacrifice, yea, he knows it. The Bhagavad Gita, Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yogehe, numero 17. Arjuna says, when men sacrifice to the angels of Brahman with faith, but discard the injunctions of the scriptures, what is the nature of their devotion of Krishna? Is it sattva, rajas, or tamas? Sri Krishna says, the faith of men born of their individual natures is of three kinds. It is characterized by sattva, rajas, or tamas. Hear now concerning it. The faith of each man is in accordance with his natural disposition. A man, O Bharata, is made of his faith. What his faith is, that verily he is. Men in whom sattva prevails worship the celestials of Brahman. Men in whom rajas prevails worship demi-angels and demons. And men in whom tamas prevails, men in whom sattva prevails, honor the celestials of Brahman. Men in whom rajas prevails, honor the demi-angels and demons, and men in whom tamas prevail honor ghosts and disembodied spirits. Those vain and conceited men who, impelled by the force of their lust and attachment, subject themselves to severe austerities not ordained by the scriptures, and fools that they are, torture all their bodily organs, and me too who dwell within the body. Know that they are fiendish in their resolves. Even the food that is dear to all is of three kinds. Likewise are the offerings, austerities, and gifts. Hear now the distinctions between them. Food that promotes longevity, vitality, strength, health, pleasure, appetite, and that is succulent, oleaginous, substantial, and agreeable, is favored by people endowed with sattva. Food that is excessively bitter, sour, salty, hot, acrid, dry, and burning is liked by people endowed with rajas. It causes pain, grief, and disease. And food that is ill-cooked, tasteless, putrid, stale, unclean, and left over is favored by people endowed with tamas. That offering is of the nature of sattva, which is offered according to the scriptural rules by those who expect no reward and who firmly believe that it is their duty to offer. But that offering which is performed in expectation of reward and for the sake of ostentation, know that to be of the nature of rajas. And that offering which is not performed according to the scriptural rules, and in which no food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no fees paid, and which is devoid of faith, is said to be of the nature of tamas. Honoring of the angels, of the twice born of teachers, and of the wise, cleanliness, uprightness, continence, and nonviolence, these are said to be the austerity of the body. Words that do not give offense, and that are truthful, pleasant, and beneficial, and also the regular recitation of the Vedas, these are said to be the austerity of speech. Serenity of mind, gentleness, silence, self-control, and purity of heart, these constitute the austerity of the mind. This threefold austerity practiced with supreme faith by steadfast men, without the desire for fruit, is said to be of the nature of sattva. The austerity that is practiced in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence, and for ostentation, is said to be of the nature of rajas. Its result is uncertain and transitory. The austerity that is practiced with a determination based on foolishness, by means of self-torture, or for the purpose of ruining another, is declared to be of the nature of tamas. That gift which is made to one who can make no return, and with the feeling that it is one's duty to give, and which is given at the right place and time and to a worthy person, such a gift is held to be of the nature of sattva. But that which is given for the sake of recompense, or with the expectation of fruit, or in a grudging mood, is accounted as of the nature of rajas. And the gift that is made without respect or with disdain, and at an improper place and time, and to an unworthy person, is declared to be of the nature of tamas. Om Tat Sat. This has been declared as the threefold designation of Brahman. By means of it were created at the beginning the Brahmins, the Vedas, and the offerings. Therefore the acts of offering, gift, and austerity enjoined by the scriptures always begun by the followers of the Vedas with the utterance of Om. And with the utterance of Tat, and without seeking any recompense, are the various acts of offering, austerity, and gift performed by those who seek liberation. The word Sat is utilized to denote reality and benevolence, and likewise a part of the word Sat is utilized for an auspicious action. Steadfastness in offering, austerity, and gift is also called Sat, and so too is any action connected therewith. Whatever offering or gift is made, whatever austerity is practiced, whatever ceremony is observed, it is called Asat, non-existence if it is done without faith. It is of no account here or hereafter. Dao Te Ching 17. The highest rulers, people do not know they have them. The next level, people love them and honor them. The next level, people fear them. The next level, people despise them. If the ruler's trust is insufficient, have no trust in them. Proceeding calmly, valuing their words, task accomplished, matter settled, the people all say, we did it naturally. Lunyu 17. Yang Ho wants to see Kung Fu Zi, and when Kung Fu Zi refuses to go and see him, he sends Kung Fu Zi a present of a piglet. Kung Fu Zi has someone keep watch on Yang Ho's house and goes to pay his respects during his absence. On the way, he happens to meet Yang Ho, who says to him, "Come now, I will speak to you. I will speak with you." Then he goes on. Can the man be said to be benevolent who, whilst hoarding his treasure, allows the state to go astray? I should say not. Can the man be said to be wise who, whilst eager to take part in public life, constantly misses the opportunity? I should say not. The days and the months slip by. Time is not on our side. Kung Fu Zi says, all right, I shall take office. The master says, men are close to one another by nature. They diverge as a result of repeated practice. The master says, it is only the most intelligent and the most stupid that are not susceptible to change. The master goes to Wu Cheng. There he hears the sound of string instruments and singing. The master breaks into a smile and says, surely you don't need to utilize an ox knife to kill a chicken. Tzu Yu answers, some time ago I heard it from you, master, that the gentleman instructed in the way, loves his fellow men, and that the small man instructed in the way is easy to command. The master says, my friends, what Yen says is right. My remark a moment ago was only made in jest. Kong Sheng Fu Zhao, utilizing P as a stronghold, stages a revolt. He summons the master, and the master wants to go. Tulu is displeased and says, "We may have nowhere to go, but why must we go to Kongshan?" The master says, "The man who summons me must have a purpose. If his purpose is to employ me, can I not perhaps create another Chao in the east?" Su Chong asks Kung Fu Zi about benevolence. Kung Fu Zi says, "There are 5 things, and whoever is capable of putting them into practice in the empire is certainly benevolent." You may ask what they are. They are respectfulness, tolerance, trustworthiness in word, quickness, and generosity. If a man is respectful, he will not be treated with insolence. If he is tolerant, he will win the multitude. If he is trustworthy in word, his fellow men will entrust him with responsibility. If he is quick, he will achieve results. If he is generous, he will be beneficial enough to be put in a position over his fellow men. PC summons the master, and the master wants to go. Tulu says, "Some time ago I heard it from you, master, that the gentleman does not enter the domain of one who is in his own person. The gentleman does not enter the domain of one who, in his own person, does what is not benevolent." Now PC is utilizing Chung Mao as a stronghold to stage a revolt. How can you justify going there? The master says, "It is true, I did say that. But has it not been said, hard indeed is it that which can withstand grinding? Has it not been said, white indeed is that which can withstand black dye? Further, how can I allow myself to be treated like a gourd, whilst instead of being eaten hangs from the end of a string?" The master says, Have you heard about the 6 qualities and the 6 attendant faults?" "No." "Be seated, and I shall tell you. To love benevolence without loving learning is liable to lead to foolishness. To love cleverness without loving learning is liable to lead to deviation from the right path. To love trustworthiness in word without loving learning is liable to lead to harmful behavior. To love forthrightness without loving learning is liable to lead to intolerance. To love courage without loving learning is liable to lead to insubordination. To love unbending strength without loving learning is liable to lead to indiscipline. The master says, why is it none of you, my young friends, study the odes? An apt quotation from the odes may serve to stimulate the imagination, to show one's breeding, to smooth over difficulties in a group, and to give expression to complaints. Inside the family there is the serving of one's far, outside there is the serving of one's master. There is also the acquiring of a wide knowledge of the names of birds and beasts, plants and trees. To these activities, the study of the odes must presumably... The master says, to Po Yu, have you studied the Chao Nan and the Shao Nan? To be a man and not to study them is, I would say, like standing with one's face directly towards the wall. The master says, surely when one says the rights, it is not enough merely to mean presence of jade and silk. Surely when one says music, it is not enough merely to mean bells and drums. The master says, a cowardly man who puts on a brave front is, when compared to small men, like the burglar who breaks in or climbs over walls. The master says, the village worthy is the ruin of virtue. The master says, the gossip monger is the outcast of virtue. The master says, is it truly possible to work side by side with a mean fellow in the service of a master? Before he gets what he wants, he worries lest he should not get it. After he has got it, he worries lest he should lose it. And when that happens, he will not stop at anything. The master says, in antiquity, the common people had 3 weaknesses, but today they cannot be counted on to have even these. In antiquity, in their wildness, men were impatient of restraint. Today, in their wildness, they simply deviate from the right path. In antiquity, in being conceited, they were uncompromising. Today, in being conceited, they are simply ill-tempered. In antiquity, in being foolish, men were straight. Today, in being foolish, they are simply crafty. The master says, it is rare indeed for a man with cunning words and an ingratiating face to be benevolent. The master says, I detest purple for displacing vermilion. I detest the tunes of Chong for corrupting classical music. I detest clever talkers who overturn states and noble families. The master says, I am thinking of giving up speech. Tzu Kung says, if you do not speak, what would there be for us, your disciples, to transmit? The master says, what does heaven ever say? Yet there are the 4 seasons going round, and there are the 100 things coming into being. What does heaven ever say? Ju Pei wants to see Confuzi. Confuzi declines to see him on the grounds of illness. As soon as the man conveying the message steps out from the door, Confuzi takes his lute and sings, making sure that he hears it. Saiwo asks about the 3-year grieving period, saying, even a full year is too long. If the gentleman gives up the practice of the rites for 3 years, the rites are sure to be in ruins. If he gives up the practice of music for 3 years, music is sure to collapse. A full year's grieving is quite enough. After all, in the course of a year, the old grain having been utilized up, the new grain ripens, and fire is renewed by fresh drilling. The master says, would you then be able to enjoy eating your rice and wearing your finery? Yes, I would. If you are able to enjoy them, do so by all means. The gentleman in grieving finds no relish in benevolent food, no pleasure in music, and no comforts in his own home. That is why he does not eat his rice and wear his finery. Since it appears that you enjoy them, then do so by all means. After Saiwo leaves, the master says, how unfeeling Yu is. A child ceases to be nursed by his parents only when he is 3 years old. 3 years grieving is observed throughout the empire. Was Yu not given 3 years love by his parents? The master says, it is no easy matter for a man who always has a full stomach to put his mind to some utilization. Are there not such things as Po and Yi? Even playing these games is better than being idle. Whilst Yi is the game known as Wei Qi, Go, in later ages, Po is believed to have been a board. The master says, it is no easy matter for a man who always has a full stomach to put his mind to some utilization. Are there not such things as Po and Yi? Tu Lu says, does the gentleman consider courage a supreme quality? The master says, for the gentleman it is virtue that is supreme. Possessed of courage but devoid of virtue, a gentleman will make trouble, whilst a small man will be a brigand. Su Kung says, does even the gentleman have dislikes? The master says, yes, the gentleman has his dislikes. He dislikes those who proclaim the evil in others. He dislikes those who, being in inferior positions, slander their superiors. He dislikes those who, whilst possessing courage, lack the spirit of the rights. He dislikes those whose resoluteness is not tempered by understanding. The master adds, do you, Su, have your dislikes as well? I dislike those in whom plagiarizing passes for wisdom. I dislike those in whom insolence passes for courage. I dislike those in whom exposure of others passes for forthrightness. The master says, in one's household it is the women and the small men that are difficult to deal with. If you let them get too loose, they become insolent. If you keep them at a distance, they complain. The master says, if by the age of 40 a man is still disliked, there is no hope for him. Digha Nikaya, the Tevijja Sutta 13. Thus have I heard. When the Exalted One was once journeying through Kosala with a great Sangha of bhikshus, with about 500 brethren, he came to the Brahmin village in Kosala, which is called Manasakata. And there in Manasakata, the Exalted One stayed in the mango grove on the bank of the river Achiravati to the north of Manasakata. Now at that time, many distinguished and wealthy Brahmins were staying at Manasakata, to wit, Chanki the Brahmin, Taruka the Brahmin, Pukarasari the Brahmin, Junasoni the Brahmin, Todeya the Brahmin, and other very distinguished and wealthy Brahmins. Now a conversation sprung up between Vaseta and Bharadvaja when they were taking exercise after their bath and walking up and down in thoughtful mood as to which was the true path and which the false. The young Brahmin Vaseta spake thus, this is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Pokarasati. The young Brahmin Bharadvaja spake thus: This is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Taruka. But neither was the young Brahmin Vaiseta able to convince the young Brahmin Bharadvaja, nor was the young Brahmin Bharadvaja able to convince the young Brahmin Vaiseta. Then the young Brahmin Vaiseta said to the young Brahmin Bharadvaja, That summoned Gautama Bharadvaja of the sons of the Sakyas, who went out from the Sakya clan to adopt the religious life, is now staying at Manasakata in the mango grove on the bank of the river Achiravati, to the north of Manasakata. Now regarding the Venerable Gautama, such is the high reputation that has been noised abroad. That exalted one is an Arahat, a fully awakened one, and fully enlightened one, abounding in wisdom and benevolence, happy with knowledge of the worlds, unsurpassed as a guide to living beings willing to be led, a teacher of angels and men, and an exalted one, a Buddha. Come then, Bharadvaja, let us go to the place where the Samana Gautama is, and when we have come there, let us ask the Samana Gautama touching this matter. What the Samana Gautama shall declare unto us, that let us bear in mind. Very well, my friend, said the young Brahmin Bharadvaja, in assent to the young Brahmin Vaseta. Then the young Brahmin Vaseta and the young Brahmin Bharadvaja went on to the place where the exalted one was, and when they had come there, they exchanged with the exalted one the greetings and compliments of politeness and courtesy, and sat down beside him. Whilst they were thus seated, the young Brahmin Vaseta said to the exalted one, As we go tomorrow, we're taking exercise and walking up and down. There sprung up a conversation between us on which was the true path and which the false. I said thus: This is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Pukarasati. Bharadvaja said thus: This is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Taruka. Regarding this matter, Gautama, there is a strife, a dispute, a difference of opinion between us. So you say, Vaseta, that you said thus: This is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Pukarasati. Whilst Bharadvaja said thus: This is the straight path, this the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. I mean that which has been announced by the Brahmin Taruka. Wherein then, O Vaseta, is there a strife, a dispute, a difference of opinion between you? Concerning the true path and the false, Gautama. Various Brahmins, Gautama, teach various paths. The Adariya Brahmins, the Titariya Brahmins, the Chandogya Brahmins, the Chandava Brahmins, the Bhavarija Brahmins, are all those saving paths. Are they all paths which will lead him who acts according to them into a state of union with Brahma? Just Gautama, as near a village or a town there are many and various paths, yet they all meet together in the village. Just in that way are all the various paths taught by various Brahmins. The Adariya Brahmins, the Titariya Brahmins, the Chandoka Brahmins, the Chandava Brahmins, the Bhavarija Brahmins. Are all these saving paths? Are they all paths which will lead him who acts according to them into a state of union with Brahma? Do you say that they all lead aright, Vaseta? I say so, Gautama. Do you truly say that they all lead aright, Vaseta? So I say, Gautama. But yet, Vaseta, is there a single one of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas who has ever seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Or is there then, Vaseta, a single one of the teachers of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas who has seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Or is there then, Vaseta, a single one of the teachers of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas who has seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Or is there then, Vaseta, a single one of the Brahmins up to the seventh generation who has ever seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Well then, Vaseta, those ancient rishis of the Brahmins, versed in the three Vedas, the authors of the verses, the utterers of the verses, whose ancient form of words is so chanted, so uttered and composed, the Brahmins of today chant over again or repeat, intoning or reciting exactly as has been intoned or recited. To it, Ataka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vasamita, Yamatagi, Anjirasa, Bharadvaja, Vaseta, Kasapa, and Bhagu. Did even they speak thus, saying, We know it, we have seen it, where Brahma is, whence Brahma is, whither Brahma is. Not so, Gautama. Then you say, Vaseta, that not one of the Brahmins or of their teachers or of their pupils, even up to the seventh generations, has ever seen Brahma face to face, and that even the rishis of old, the authors and utterers of the verses of the ancient form of words which the Brahmins of today so carefully intone and recite precisely as they have been handed down, even they did not pretend to know or to have seen where or whence or whither Brahma is. so that the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas have forsooth said thus: what we know not, what we have not seen, to a state of union with that we can show the way, and we can say, this is the straight path, this is the direct way which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it into a state of union with Brahma. Now what think you, Vasita? Does it not follow, this being so, that the talk of the Brahmins, versed though they be in the three Vedas, turns out to be foolish talk? And Sooth Gotama, that being so, it follows that the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas is foolish talk. Verily, Vasita, that Brahmins versed in the three Vedas should be able to show the way to a state of union with that which they do not know, neither have seen. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Just Vasita, as when a string of blind men are clinging one to the other, neither can the foremost see, nor the middle one, nor the hindmost see. Just even so, methinks, Vasita, is the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas but blind talk. The first sees not, the middle one sees not, nor can the latest see. The talk then of these Brahmins versed in the three Vedas turns out to be ridiculous, mere words, a vain and empty thing. Now what think you, Vasita? Can the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas, like other ordinary folk, see the moon and the soleil as they pray to and honor and address them, turning round with clasped hands towards the place whence they rise and where they set? Certainly, Gotama, they can. Now what think you, Vasita? The Brahmins versed in the three Vedas, who can very well, like other ordinary folk, see the moon and the soleil as they pray to, honor, and address them, turning round with clasped hands to the place whence they rise and where they set, are those Brahmins versed in the three Vedas able to point out the way to a state of union with the moon or the soleil, saying, this is the straight path, this is the direct way, this which makes for salvation and leads him who acts according to it to a state of union with the moon or the soleil? Certainly not, Gotama. So you say, Vasita, that the Brahmins are not able to point out the way to union with that which they have seen, or you further say that any one of them, neither any one of them, nor of their pupils, nor of their predecessors, even to the seventh generation, has ever seen Brahma. And you further say that even the rishis of old, whose words they hold in such deep respect, did not pretend to know or to have seen where or whence or whither Brahma is. Yet these Brahmins versed in the three Vedas say forsooth that they can point out the way to union with that which they know not, neither have seen. Now what think you, Vasita? Does it not follow that this being so, the talk of the Brahmins versed though they be in the three Vedas turns out to be foolish talk? And Sooth Gotama, that being so, it follows that the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas is foolish talk. Very well, Vasita. Verily then, Vasita, that Brahmins versed in the three Vedas should be able to show the way to a state of union with that which they do not know, neither have seen. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Just Vasita, as if a man should say, how I long for, how I love the most beautiful woman in this land, and people should ask him, well, benevolent friend, this most beautiful woman in the land whom you thus love and long for, do you know whether that beautiful woman is a noble lady, or a Brahmin woman, or of the trader class, or a Sudra? But when so asked, he should answer no. And when people should ask him, well, benevolent friend, this most beautiful woman in all the land whom you so love and long for, do you know what the name of the most beautiful woman is, or what is her family name, whether she be tall or short, or of medium height, dark or brunette, or golden in color, or in what village or town or city she dwells? But when so asked, he should answer no. And then people should say to him, well, so then, benevolent friend, whom you know not, neither have seen, her do you love and long for? And then when so asked, he should answer yes. Now what think you, Vasita, that would it not turn out, that being so, that the talk of that man was foolish talk? And Sooth Gotama, it would turn out, that being so, that the talk of that man was foolish talk. And just even so, Vasita, though you say that the Brahmins are not able to point out the way to union with that which they have seen, and you further say that they, neither any one of them, nor of their pupils, nor of their predecessors, even to the seventh generation, has ever seen Brahma. And you further say that even the rishis of old, whose words they hold in such deep respect, did not pretend to know or to have seen where or whence or whither Brahma is. Yet these Brahmins versed in the three Vedas say forsooth that they can point out the way to union with that which they know not, neither have seen. Now what think you, Vasita? Does it not follow that this being so, the talk of the Brahmins versed though they be in the three Vedas is foolish talk? And Sooth Gotama, that being so, it follows that the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas is foolish talk. Very well, Vasita. that Brahmins versed in the three Vedas should be able to show the way to a state of union with that which they do not know, neither have seen. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Just Vaseta, as if a man should make a staircase in the place where four roads cross to mount up into a mansion, and the people should say to him, "Well, benevolent friend, this mansion to mount up into which you are making the staircase, do you know whether it is in the east or in the south or in the west or in the north, whether it is high or low or of medium size?" And when so asked, he should answer no. And people should say to him, "But then, benevolent friend, you are making a staircase to mount up into something, taking it for a mansion, which all the while you know not, neither have seen." And when so asked, he should answer yes. Now, but think you, Vasita, would it not turn out that being so, that the talk of that man was foolish talk? And so Gotama, it would turn out that being so, the talk of that man was foolish talk. And just even so, Vasita, though you say that the Brahmins are not able to point out the way to union with that which they have not seen, are not able to point out the way to union which that which they have seen, and you further say that neither any one of them, nor of their pupils, nor of their predecessors, even to the seventh generation, has ever seen Brahma, and you further say that even the rishis of old, whose words they hold in such deep respect, did not pretend to know or to have seen where or whence or whither Brahma is. Yet these Brahmins, versed in the three Vedas, say forsooth that they can point out the way to union with that which they know not, neither have seen. Now what think you, Vaseta? Does it not follow that being so, the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas is foolish talk? And so Gotama, that being so, it follows that the talk of the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas is foolish talk. Very well, Vaseta. Very well, then. That Brahmins versed in the three Vedas should be able to show the way to a state of union with that which they do not know, neither have seen. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Again, Vaseta, if this river Achiravati were full of water, even to the brim and overflowing, and a man with business on the other side, bound for the other side, making for the other side, should come up and want to cross over, and he standing on this bank should invoke the further bank and say, "Come hither, O further bank, come over to this side." Now what think you, Vaseta? Would the further bank of the river Achiravati, by reason of that man's invoking and praying and hoping and praising and honoring, come over to this side? Certainly not, Gotama. In just the same way, Vaseta, do the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas, omitting the practice of those qualities which truly make a man a Brahmin, and adopting the practice of those qualities which truly make men non-Brahmins, say thus: Indra of Brahman we call upon, Soma of Brahman we call upon, Varuna of Brahman we call upon, Asana of Brahman we call upon, Prajapati of Brahman we call upon, Brahma of Brahman we call upon, Mahidi of Brahman we call upon, Yama of Brahman we call upon. Verily, Vaseta, that those Brahmins versed in the three Vedas, but omitting the practice of those qualities which truly make a man a Brahmin, and adopting the practice of those qualities which truly make men non-Brahmins, that they, by reason of their invoking and praying and hoping and praising and honoring, should after death and when the body is dissolved become united with Brahma. Verily, such a condition of things can in no wise be. Just Vaseta, as if this river Achiravati were full even to the brink and overflowing, and a man with business on the other side, making for the other side, bound for the other side, should come up and want to cross over, and he on this bank were to be found with his arms behind his back by a strong chain. Now what think you, Vaseta? Would that man be able to get over from this bank to the river Achiravati to the further bank? Certainly not, Gotama. In the same way, Vaseta, there are five things leading to lust, which are called in the discipline of the Arhats a chain and a bond. What are the five? Forms perceptible to the eye, desirable, agreeable, pleasant. Attractive forms that are accompanied by lust and cause delight. Sounds of the same kind perceptible to the ear. Odors of the same kind perceptible to the nose. Tastes of the same kind perceptible to the tongue. Substances of the same kind perceptible to the body by touch. These five things predisposing to passion are called in the discipline of the Arhats a chain and a bond. And these five things predisposing to lust, Vaseta, do the Brahmins versed in the three Vedas cling to. They are infatuated by them, attached to them, see not the danger of them, know not how unreliable they are, and so enjoy them. And verily, Vaseta, that Brahmins versed in the three Vedas, but omitting the practice of those qualities which truly make a man a Brahmin, and adopting the practice of those qualities which truly make men non-Brahmins, clinging to these five things, predisposing to passion, infatuated by them, attached to them, seeing not their danger, knowing not their unreliability, and so enjoying them, that these Brahmins should after death, on the dissolution of the body, become united to Brahma. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Again, Vesita, if this river Achiravati were full of water even to the brim and overflowing, and a man with business on the other side, making for the other side, bound for the other side, should come up and want to cross over, and if he, covering himself even up to his head, were to lie down on this bank to sleep, now what think you, Vesita, would that man be able to get over from this bank of the river Achiravati to the further bank? Certainly not, Gotama. And in the same way, Vesita, these are the 5 hindrances in the discipline of the Arahats, which are called veils, and are called hindrances, and are called obstacles, and are called entanglements, which are the 5. The hindrance of worldly lust, the hindrance of ill will, the hindrance of torpor and sloth, of heart and mind, the hindrance of flurry and worry, the hindrance of suspense. These are the 5 hindrances, Vaiseta, which in the discipline of the Arhats are called the veils, and are called the hindrances, and are called the obstacles, and are called entanglements. Now with these 5 hindrances, Vaiseta, the Brahmins versed in the 3 Vedas are veiled, hindered, obstructed, and entangled. And verily, Vaiseta, that Brahmins versed in the 3 Vedas, but omitting the practice of those qualities which truly make a man a Brahmin, and adopting the practice of those qualities which truly make men non-Brahmins, veiled, hindered, obstructed, and entangled by these 5 hindrances, that these Brahmins should after death on the dissolution of the body become united to Brahma. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Now what think you, Vaiseta, and what have you heard from the Brahmins aged and well stricken in years, when the learners and teachers are talking together? Is Brahma in possession of wives and wealth, or is he not? He is not, Gotama. Is his mind full of anger, or free from anger? Free from anger, Gotama. Is his mind full of malice, or free from malice? Free from malice, Gotama. Is his mind tarnished, or is it pure? It is pure, Gotama. Has he self-mastery, or has he not? He has, Gotama. Now I think you, Vaiseta, are the Brahmins versed in the Vedas in the possession of wives and wealth, or are they not? They are, Gotama. Have they anger in their hearts, or have they not? They have, Gotama. Do they bear malice, or do they not? They do, Gotama. Are they pure in heart, or are they not? They are not, Gotama. Have they self-mastery, or have they not? They have not, Gotama. Then you say, Vaiseta, that the Brahmins are in possession of wives and wealth, and that Brahma is not. Can there then be agreement and likeness between the Brahmins and with their wives and property, and Brahma, who has none of these things? Certainly not, Gotama. Very well, Vaiseta. But verily that these Brahmins versed in the Vedas, who live married and wealthy, should after death, when the body is dissolved, become united with Brahma, who has none of these things. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. Then you say too, Vaiseta, that the Brahmins bear anger and malice in their hearts, and are tarnished in heart and controlled, whilst Brahma is free from anger and malice, pure in heart, and has self-mastery. Now can there then be concord and likeness between the Brahmins and Brahma? Certainly not, Gotama. That these Brahmins versed in the Vedas, and yet bearing anger and malice in their hearts, sinful and uncontrolled, should after death, when the body is dissolved, become united to Brahman, who is free from anger and malice, pure in heart, and has self-mastery. Such a condition of things can in no wise be. So that thus then, Vaiseta, the Brahmins, versed though they be in the 3 Vedas, whilst they sit down in confidence, are sinking down in the mire, and so sinking they are arriving only at despair, thinking that the while that they are crossing over into some happier land. Therefore is it that the threefold wisdom of the Brahmins, wise in their 3 Vedas, is called a waterless desert, their threefold wisdom is called a pathless jungle, their threefold wisdom is called perdition. When he had thus spoken, the young Brahmin Vaiseta said to the Blessed One, It has been told me, Gotama, that the Samana Gotama knows the way to the state of union with Brahma. What do you think, Vaiseta? Is not Manasakata near to this spot, not distant from this spot? Just so, Gotama, Manasakata is not distant from here. Now what think you, Vaiseta? Suppose there were a man born in Manasakata, and people should ask him, who never till that time had left Manasakata, which was the way to Manasakata. Would that man born and brought up in Manasakata be in any way any doubt or difficulty? Certainly not, Gotama. And why? If the man had been born and brought up in Manasakata, every road that leads to Manasakata would be perfectly familiar to him. That man, Vaiseta, born and brought up at Manasakata, might, if he were asked the way to Manasakata, fall into doubt and difficulty, but to the Tathagata, when asked touching the path which leads to the world of Brahma, there can be neither doubt nor difficulty. For Brahma I know, Vaiseta, and the world of Brahma, and the path which leadeth on to it. Yea, I know it even as one who has entered the Brahma world and has been born within it. When he had thus spoken, Vaiseta, the young Brahmin, said to the Blessed One, Just so has it been told me, Gotama, even that the Samana Gotama knows the way to a state of union with Brahma. It is well that the Venerable Gotama be pleased to show us the way to a state of union with Brahma, that let the Venerable Gotama save the Brahmin race. Listen then, Vaiseta, and give ear attentively, and I will speak. So be it, Master. And the young Brahmin Vaiseta said the young Brahmin Vaiseta in assent to the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One spake and said, Now Veseda, that from time to time a Tathagata is born into the world, an Arahat, a fully awakened one, abounding in wisdom and benevolence, happy with knowledge of the worlds, unsurpassed as a guide to willing beings. As a guide to living beings willing to be led, a teacher of angels and men, a blessed one, a Buddha. He by himself thoroughly understands and sees, as it were, face to face, this universe, including the worlds above with the angels, the Maras and the Brahmas, and the world below with its Samanas and Brahmins, its princes and peoples, and he then makes his knowledge known to others. The truth doth he proclaim both in the letter and in the spirit, lovely in its origin, lovely in its progress, lovely in its consummation. The higher life doth he make known in all its purity and in all its perfectness. A householder, Gahapati, or one of his children, or a man of inferior birth in any class, listens to that truth, to that Dhamma. On hearing that Dhamma, he has faith in the Tathagata, and when he has acquired that faith, he thus considers with himself. Full of hindrances is household life, a path defiled by passion, free as the air is the life of him who has renounced all worldly things. How difficult it is for the man who dwells at home to live the higher life in all its fullness and all its purity and all its perfection. Let me then cut off my hair and beard, let me clothe myself in the orange-colored robes, and let me go forth from a household life into the homeless state. Then before long, forsaking his portion of wealth, be it great or be it small, forsaking his circle of relatives, be they many or be they few, he cuts off his hair and beard, he clothes himself in the orange-colored robes, and he goes forth from the houseless life into the homeless state. When he has thus become a recluse, he passes a life self-restrained by that restraint which should be binding on a recluse. Uprightness is his delight, and he sees danger in the least of those things he should avoid. He adopts and trains himself in the precepts. He encompasses himself with benevolence in word and deed. He sustains his life by means that are quite pure. Benevolent is his conduct, guarding the doors of his senses, mindful and self-possessed. He is altogether happy. And how Veseda is his conduct benevolent. Here in Veseda, Tathagata arises in the world, a worthy one, perfectly enlightened, endowed with clear knowledge and conduct, accomplished, a knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of angels and men, enlightened and exalted. Having actualized by his own direct knowledge this world with its angels, its Maras, and its Brahmas, this generation with its recluses and Brahmas, its rulers and people, he makes it known to others. He teaches the Dharma that is benevolent in the beginning, benevolent in the middle, and benevolent in the end. Possessing meaning and phrasing, he reveals the holy life that is fully complete and purified. A householder or a householder's son, or one born into some other family, hears the Dhamma. Having heard the Dhamma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Endowed with such faith, he reflects the household life is crowded a path of dust. Going forth is like the open air. It is not easy for one dwelling at home to lead the perfectly complete, perfectly purified holy life, bright as a polished conch. Let me then shave off my hair and beard, put on saffron robes, and go forth from home to homelessness. After some time, he abandons his accumulation of wealth, be it large or small. He abandons his circle of relatives, be it large or small. He shaves off his hair and beard, puts on saffron robes, and goes forth from home to homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he lives restrained in the restraint of the patimoksha, possessed of proper behavior and resort. Having taken up the rules of training, he trains himself in them, and seeing danger in the slightest faults, he comes to be endowed with wholesome bodily and verbal action. His livelihood is purified, and he is possessed of conduct. He guards the doors of his sense faculties, is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension, and is content. And how Veseda is the bhikshu possessed of virtuous discipline. Here in Veseda, having abandoned the destruction of life, the bhikshu abstains from the destruction of life. He has laid down the rod and weapon, and duelist conscientious, full of kindness, sympathetic for the well-being of all living beings. Having abandoned taking what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. Accepting and expecting only what is given, he lives in honesty with a pure mind. Having abandoned in celibacy, he leads the holy life of celibacy. He dwells aloof and abstains from the vulgar practice of sexual intercourse. Having abandoned false speech, he abstains from falsehood. He speaks only the truth. He lives devoted to truth, trustworthy and reliable. He does not deceive anyone in the world. Having abandoned slander, he abstains from slander. He does not repeat elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide the others from the people here, nor does he repeat here what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these from the people there. Thus he is a reconciler of those who are divided and a promoter of friendships. Rejoicing, delighting, and exulting in concord, he speaks only words that are conducive to concord. Having abandoned harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. He speaks only such words as are gentle, pleasing to the ear, endearing, going to the heart, polite, amiable, and agreeable to the many folk. Having abandoned idle chatter, he abstains from idle chatter. He speaks at the right time, speaks what is factual and beneficial, speaks on the Dharma and the discipline. His words are worth treasuring. They are timely backed by reasons, measured and connected with the benevolent. He abstains from damaging seed and plant life. He eats only one part of the day, refraining from food at night and from eating at improper times. He abstains from dancing, singing instrumental music, and from witnessing unsuitable shows. He abstains from wearing garlands, embellishing himself with scents, and beautifying himself with unguents. He abstains from high luxurious beds and seats. He abstains from accepting gold and silver. He abstains from accepting uncooked grain, raw meat, women and girls, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, fowl and swine, elephants, cattle, horses, and mares. He abstains from accepting fields and lands. He abstains from running messages and errands. He abstains from buying and selling. He abstains from dealing with false weights, false metals, and false measures. He abstains from the crooked ways of robbery, deception, and fraud. He abstains from mutilating, executing, imprisoning, robbery, plunder, and violence. This too pertains to his virtuous discipline. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while living on food offered by the faithful, continually cause damage to seed and plant life, to plants propagated from roots, stems, joints, buds, and seeds, he abstains from damaging seed and plant life. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while living on food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of stored up treasures, such as stored up food, drink, garments, vehicles, bedding, scents, and comestibles, he abstains from the utilization of stored up treasures. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while living on food offered by the faithful, attend unsuitable shows such as shows featuring dancing, singing, or instrumental music, theatrical performances and narrations of legends, music played by hand clapping, cymbals, and drums, picture houses, acrobatic performances, combats of elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, goats, rams, cocks, and quails, stick fights, boxing and wrestling, champ fights, roll calls, battle arrays, and regimental reviews. He abstains from attending such unsuitable shows. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, indulge in the following games and recreations: Atapada, Dasapada, Akasha, Pariharapata, Santika, Kalika, Gatika, Salakahata, Aksha, Pangachira, Vankaka, Moksha, Chika, Chingulika, Patalaka, Rataka, Danuka, Acharika, Manasika, Yatavaja. He abstains from such games that are a basis for negligence. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of high and luxurious beds and seats, such as spacious couches, thrones with animal figures carved on the supports, long-haired coverlets, multicolored patchwork coverlets, white woolen coverlets embroidered with flowers, quilt stuffed with cotton, woolen coverlets embroidered with animal figures, woolen coverlets with hair on both sides or on one side, bedspreads embroidered with gems, silk coverlets, dancehall carpets, elephant, horse, or chariot rugs, rugs of antelope skins, choice spreads made from Kadali deer hides, spreads with red awnings overhead, couches with red cushions for head and feet. He abstains from the utilization of such high and luxurious beds and seats. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, enjoy the utilization of such devices for embellishing and beautifying themselves as the following: rubbing scented powders into the body, massaging with oils, bathing in perfumed water, kneading the linens, mirrors, ointments, garlands, scents, unguents, face powders, makeup, bracelets, headbands, decorated walking sticks, ornamented medicine tubes, rapiers, soleil shades, embroidered sandals, turbans, diadems, yak-tail whisks, and long fringed white robes. He abstains from the utilization of such devices for embellishment and beautification. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, engage in frivolous chatter, such as talk about kings, thieves, and ministers of state, talk about armies, dangers, and wars, talk about food, drink, garments, and lodgings, talk about garlands and scents, talk about relations, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, and countries, talk about women and talk about heroes, street talk and talk by the well, talk about those departed in the days gone by, rambling chit-chat, speculations about the world and about the sea, talk about gain and loss. He abstains from such frivolous chatter. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while living on the food offered by the faithful, engage in wrangling argumentation, saying to one another, "You don't understand this doctrine and discipline. It is I who understand this doctrine and discipline. How can you understand this doctrine and discipline? You're practicing the wrong way. I'm practicing the right way. I'm being consistent. You're inconsistent. What should have been said first, you said last, and what should have been said last, you said first. What you took so long to think out has been confuted. Your doctrine has been refuted. You're defeated. Go try to save your doctrine and disentangle yourself now if you can." He abstains from such wrangling argumentation. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, engage in running messages and errands for kings, ministers of state, Kachyas, Brahmins, householders, or youths who command them, "Go here, go there, take this, bring that from there." He abstains from running such messages and errands. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, engage in scheming, talking, hinting, belittling others, and pursuing gain with gain. He abstains from such kinds of scheming and talking. Whereas some recluses and Brahmanas, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by a wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as prophesying long life, prosperity, additionally, or the reverse from the marks on a person's limbs, hands, feet, additionally, divvying by means of omens and signs, making auguries on the basis of thunderbolts and celestial portents, interpreting ominous dreams, telling fortunes from marks on the body, making auguries from the marks on cloth gnawed by mice, offering fire oblations from a ladle, offering oblations of husks, rice powder, rice grains, ghee, and oil to the celestials, offering oblations from the mouth, offering offerings to the angels, making predictions based on the finger to the celestials, offering blood sacrifice to the celestials, making predictions based on the fingerprints, determining whether the site for a proposed house or garden is propitious or not, making predictions for officers of state, laying demons in a cemetery, laying ghosts, knowledge of charms to be pronounced by one living in an earthen house, snake charming, the poison craft, scorpion craft, rat craft, bird craft, crow craft, foretelling the number of years that a man has to live, reciting charms to give protection from arrows, reciting charms to give reciting charms to understand the language of animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such base arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as interpreting the significance of the color, shape, and other features of the following items to determine whether they portend fortune or misfortune for their owners: gems, garments, staffs, swords, spears, arrows, bows, other weapons, women, men, boys, girls, slaves, slave women, elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, fowl, quails, lizards, earrings, tortoises, and other animals. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such base arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as making predictions to the effect that the king will march forth, the king will return, our king will attack, and the enemy king will retreat, and the enemy king will attack, and our king will retreat. Our king will triumph, and the enemy king will be defeated. The enemy king will triumph, and our king will be defeated. Thus there will be victory for one and defeat for the other. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood and from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as predicting. There will be an eclipse of the moon, an eclipse of the soleil, an eclipse of a constellation. The soleil and the moon will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of the soleil and moon. The constellations will go on their proper courses. There will be an aberration of a constellation. There will be a fall of meteors. There will be a sky blaze. There will be an earthquake. There will be an earth roar. There will be a ringing. There will be a rising, setting, and darkening and brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. Such will be the result of the moon's eclipse, such the result of the soleil's eclipse, and so on down to such will be the result of the rising and setting, darkening, and brightening of the moon, soleil, and constellations. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as predicting. There will be abundant rain, there will be a drought, there will be a beneficial harvest, there will be a famine, there will be security, there will be danger, there will be sickness, there will be health. Or they earn their living by accounting, computation, calculation, the composing of poetry, and speculations about the world. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such base arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, while sleeping on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such base arts as arranging auspicious dates for marriages, both those in which the bride is brought home and those in which she is sent out, arranging auspicious dates for betrothals and divorces, arranging auspicious dates for the accumulation or expenditure of money, reciting charms to make people lucky or unlucky, rejuvenating the fetuses of abortive women, reciting spells to bind a man's tongue, to paralyze his jaws, to make him lose control over his hands, or to bring on deafness, obtaining auricular answers to go to questions by means of a mirror, a girl, or a celestial, or worshipping the soleil, worshipping Mahabrahma, bringing forth flames from the mouth, invoking the celestial of luck. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Whereas some recluses and Brahmins, whilst living on the food offered by the faithful, earn their living by wrong means of livelihood by such debased arts as promising gifts to deities in return for favors, fulfilling such promises, demonology, reciting spells after entering an earthen house, inducing virility and impotence, preparing and consecrating sites for a house, giving ceremonial mouthwashes and ceremonial bathing, offering offertory fires, administering medics and purgatives, expectorants and phlegmagogues, administering medicines through the ear and through the nose, administering ointments and counter-ointments, practicing fine surgery on the eyes and ears, practicing general surgery on the body, practicing as a children's doctor. He abstains from such wrong means of livelihood, from such debased arts. Vaseta, the bhikshu who is thus possessed of virtuous discipline, sees no danger anywhere in regard to his restraint by virtuous discipline. Just as the head-anointed noble warrior who has defeated his enemy sees no danger anywhere from his enemies, so the bhikshu who is thus possessed of virtuous discipline sees no danger anywhere in regard to his restraint by virtuous discipline. Endowed with this noble aggregate of virtuous discipline, he experiences within himself a blameless happiness. In this way, Vaseta the bhikshu is possessed of virtuous discipline. How Vaseta does the bhikshu guard the doors of his sense faculties? Herein Vaseta, having seen a form with the eye, the bhikshu does not grasp of the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the eye, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the eye, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the eye. Having heard a sound with the ear, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the ear, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the ear, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the ear. Having smelled an odor with the nose, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the nose, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the nose, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the nose. Having tasted a flavor with the tongue, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the tongue, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the tongue, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the tongue. Having touched a tangible object with the body, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign or the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the body, Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the tongue, evil and wholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the tongue, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the tongue. Having touched an object with the body, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign of the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the body, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the body, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the body. Having cognized the mind object with the mind, the bhikshu does not grasp at the sign of the details. Since if he were to dwell without restraint over the faculty of the mind, evil and unwholesome states such as covetousness and grief might assail him. He practices restraint, guards the faculty of the mind, and achieves restraint over the faculty of the mind. Endowed with this noble restraint of the sense faculties, he experiences within himself an unblemished happiness. In this way, Vaseta the bhikshu guards the doors of the sense faculties. And how Vaseta is the bhikshu endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension. Herein Vaseta, in going forward and returning, the bhikshu acts with clear comprehension. In looking ahead and looking aside, he acts with clear comprehension. In bending and stretching the limbs, he acts with clear comprehension. In wearing his robes and cloak and utilizing his alms well, he acts with clear comprehension. In eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, he acts with clear comprehension. In defecating and urinating, he acts with clear comprehension. In going, standing, sitting, lying down, waking up, and speaking, and remaining silent, he acts with clear comprehension. In this way, Vaseta, the bhikshu, is endowed with mindfulness and clear comprehension. And how Vaseta is the bhikshu content. Herein, Vaseta, a bhikshu, is content with robes to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him. Just as a bird, wherever it goes, flies with its wings as its only burden. In the same way, a bhikshu is content with robes and to protect his body and alms food to sustain his belly. Wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only his requisites along with him. In this way, Vaseta, the bhikshu, is content. Endowed with this noble aggregate of virtuous discipline, this noble restraint over the sense faculties, this noble mindfulness and clear comprehension, and this noble contentment, he resorts to a secluded dwelling, a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside, cave, a cremation ground, a jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. After returning from his alms rounds, following his meals, he sits down, crosses his legs, holds his body erect, and sets up mindfulness before him. Having abandoned covetousness for the world, he dwells with a mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, he dwells with a benevolent mind, sympathetic for the well-being of all living beings. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Having abandoned dullness and drowsiness, he dwells perceiving light, mindful and clearly comprehending. He purifies his mind from dullness and drowsiness. Having abandoned restlessness and worry, he dwells at ease within himself. With a peaceful mind, he purifies his mind from restlessness and worry. Having abandoned doubt, he dwells as one who has passed beyond doubt. Unperplexed about wholesome states, he purifies his mind from doubt. Vaseta, suppose a man were to take a loan and apply it to his business, and his business were to succeed so that he could pay back his old debts and would have enough money left over to maintain a wife. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, Vaseta, suppose a man were to become sick, afflicted, gravely ill, so that he could not enjoy his food, and his strength would decline. After some time, he would recover from that illness and would enjoy his food and regain his bodily strength. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, Veseda, suppose a man were locked up in a prison. After some time, he would be released from prison, safe and secure, with no loss of his possessions. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, Veseda, suppose a man were a slave without independence, subservient to others, unable to go where he wants. After some time, he would be released from slavery and gain his independence. He would no longer be subservient to others, but a free man able to go where he wants. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, Veseda, suppose a man with wealth and possessions were traveling along a desert road where food was scarce and dangers were many. After some time, he would cross over the desert and arrive safely at a village which is safe and free from danger. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. In the same way, Veseda, when a bhikshu sees that these 5 hindrances are unabandoned within himself, he regards that as a debt, as a sickness, as confinement in prison, as slavery, as a desert road. But when he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, he regards that as freedom from debt, as benevolent health, as release from prison, as freedom from slavery, as a place of safety. When he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, gladness arises. When he is glad and rapture arises. When his mind is filled with rapture, his body becomes tranquil. Tranquil in body, he experiences happiness. Being happy, his mind becomes concentrated. And he lets his mind pervade 1/4 of the world with thoughts of love, and so the second, and so the third, and so the fourth, and thus the whole wide world, above, below, around, and everywhere does he continue to pervade with the heart of love, distant, reaching, grown great, and beyond measure. Just to say it, as a mighty trumpeter makes himself heard, and that without difficulty in all the 4 directions, even so of all the things that have shape or life, there is not one thing that he passes by or leaves aside, but regards them all with mind set free and deep felt love. Verily, this Veseda is the way to a state of union with Brahma. And he lets his mind pervade 1/4 of the world with thoughts of pity. And so the second, and so the third, and so the fourth. And thus the whole wide world, above, below, around, and everywhere does he continue to pervade with heart of pity, distant, reaching, grown great, and beyond measure. Just Veseda, as a mighty trumpeter makes himself heard, and that without difficulty in all the 4 directions, even so of all the things that have shape or life, there is not one that he passes by or leaves aside, but regards them all with mind set free and deep felt pity. Verily, this Veseda is the way to a state of union with Brahma. And he lets his mind pervade 1/4 of the world with thoughts of sympathy. And so the second, and so the third, and so the fourth. And thus the whole wide world, above, below, around, and everywhere does he continue to pervade with the heart of sympathy, distant, reaching, grown great, and beyond measure. Just Veseda, as a mighty trumpeter makes himself heard, and that without difficulty in all the 4 directions, even so of all the things that have shape or life, there is not one that he passes by or leaves aside, but regards them all with mind set free and deep felt sympathy. Verily, this Veseda is the way to a state of union with Brahma. And he lets his mind pervade 1/4 of the world with thoughts of empathy, with thoughts of equanimity. And so the second, and so the third, and so the fourth. And thus the whole wide world, above, below, around, and everywhere does he continue to pervade with heart of equanimity, distant, reaching, grown great, and beyond measure. Just Veseda, as a mighty trumpeter makes himself heard, and that without difficulty in all the 4 directions, even so of all the things that have shape or life, there is not one thing that he passes by or leaves aside, but regards them all with mind set free and deep felt equanimity. Verily, this Veseda is the way to a state of union with Brahma. Now what think you, Veseda? Will the bhikshu who lives thus be in possession of women and of wealth, or will he not? He will not, Gotama. Will he be full of anger or free from anger? He will be free from anger, Gotama. Will his mind be full of malice or free from malice? Free from malice, Gotama. Will his mind be tarnished or pure? It will be pure, Gotama. Will he have self-mastery or will he not? Surely he will, Gotama. Then you say, Veseda, that the bhikshu is free from household and worldly cares, and that Brahma is free from household and worldly cares, Is there then agreement and likeness between the Bhikshu and Brahma? There is, Gautama. Very well, Vaiseta. Then in sooth, Vaiseta, that the Bhikshu who is free from household cares should, after death, when the body is dissolved, become united with Brahma, who is the same. Such a condition of things is every way possible. And so you say, Vaiseta, that the Bhikshu is free from anger and free from malice, pure in mind and master of himself, and that Brahma is free from anger and free from malice, pure in mind and master of himself. Then in sooth, Vaiseta, that the Bhikshu who is free from anger, free from malice, pure in mind, and master of himself, should after death, when the body is dissolved, become united with Brahma, who is the same. Such a condition of things is every way possible. When he had thus spoken to the young Brahmins, Vaiseta and Bharadvaja addressed the Blessed One and said, Most excellent Master are the words of thy mouth, most excellent. Just as if a man were to set up that which is thrown down, or to reveal that which is hidden away, or to point out the right road to him who has gone astray, or were to bring a lamp into the darkness, so that those who have eyes can see external forms, just even so, Master, has the truth, the Dharma, been made known to us in many figure by the Exalted One. And we betake ourselves, Master, to the Blessed One as our guide, to the Dharma, and to the Sangha. May the Blessed One accept us as disciples, as true believers, from this day forth, as long as life endures. Dhammapada, the Kodavaga 17. One should give up anger, renounce pride, and overcome all fetters. Suffering never befalls him who clings not to mind and body and is detached. He who checks rising anger as a charioteer checks a rolling chariot, him I call a true charioteer. Others only hold the reins. Overcome the angry by non-anger. Overcome the wicked by benevolence. Overcome the miser by generosity. Overcome the liar by truth. Speak the truth, yield not to anger. When asked, give, even if you only have a little. By these three means can one reach the presence of the angels. Those sages who are inoffensive and ever restrained in body go to the deathless state, where, having gone, they grieve no further. Those who are ever vigilant, who discipline themselves day and night, and are ever intent upon nibbana, their defilements fade away. O Atula, indeed this is an ancient practice, not one only of today. They blame those who remain silent, they blame those who speak much, they blame those who speak in moderation. There is none in the world who is not blamed. There never was, there never will be, nor is there now a person who is wholly blamed or wholly honored. But the man whom the wise honor, after observing him day after day, is one of flawless character, wise and endowed with knowledge and virtue. Who can blame such a one, as worthy as a coin of refined gold? Even the angels honor him. By Brahma too is he honored. Let a man guard himself against irritability and bodily action. Let him be controlled in deed, abandoning bodily misconduct. Let him practice benevolent conduct in deed. Let a man guard himself against irritability in speech. Let him be controlled in speech, abandoning verbal misconduct. Let him practice benevolent conduct in speech. Let a man guard himself against irritability in thought. Let him be controlled in mind, abandoning mental misconduct. Let him practice benevolent conduct in thought. The wise are controlled in bodily action, controlled in speech, and controlled in thought. They are truly well controlled. Gospels, Mark 5:6. They went across a lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him any further, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day amongst the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us amongst the pigs. Allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home and to your own people and tell them how much God has done for you, and how God has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him whilst he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus recognized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher any further?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead but asleep." But they laughed at him. And he put them all out, and he took the child as far and more, and the disciples who were with him, and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talita kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to tell anyone about this. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When Shabbat came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. "Where did this man get these things?" they asked. "What's this wisdom that has been given him? What are these remarkable miracles he is performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, amongst his relatives, and in his own home." He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. Then Jesus went around teaching from village to village. Calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over impure spirits. These were his instructions: "Take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them." They went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others say he is Eliyahu, and still others claimed he is a prophet like one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, "John, whom I beheaded, has been raised from the dead." For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but she was not able to, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you." And he promised her with an oath, "Whatever you ask, I will give you up to half of my kingdom." She went out and said to her more, "What shall I ask for?" "The head of John the Baptist," she answered. At once the girl hurried into the king with a request. "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in the prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her more. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. "This is a remote place," they said, "and it's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take further than half year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?" "How many loaves do you have?" he asked. "Go and see." When they found out, they said, "5 and 2 fish." Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish amongst them all. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up the 12 basketfuls of broken portions of bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten was 5,000. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida, whilst he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, 18. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, who hath sent to Allah's servant the book, and hath allowed therein no crookedness. Allah hath made it straight and clear, in order that Allah may warn the sacredless of a terrible punishment from Allah, and that Allah may give glad tidings to the believers who work righteous deeds, that they shall have a holy reward, wherein they shall remain forever. Further, that Allah may warn those also who say Allah has begotten a son. No knowledge have they of such a thing, nor had their fathers. It is a grievous thing that issues from their mouths as a saying. What they say is nothing but falsehood. Thou wouldst only perchance fret thyself to death, following after them in grief, if they believe not in this message. That which is on the earth we have made but as a glittering show for the earth, in order that we may test them as to which of them are best in conduct. Verily, what is on earth we shall make but as dust and dried soil, without growth or herbage. Or dost thou reflect that the companions of the cave and of the inscription were wonders amongst our signs? Behold, the youths betook themselves to the cave. They said, Our Lord, bestow on us mercy from thyself, and dispose of our affairs for us in the right way. Then we drew a veil over their eyes for a number of years in the cave, so that they heard not. Then we roused them in order to test which of the two parties was best at calculating the term of years they had tarried. We relate to thee their story in truth. They were youths who believed in their Lord, and we advanced them in guidance. We gave strength to their hearts. Behold, they stood up and said, Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and of the earth. Never shall we call upon any deity other than Allah. If we did, we should indeed have uttered an enormity. These our people have taken for worship deities other than Allah. Why do they not bring forward an authority clear and convincing for what they do? Who doth further wrong than such as invent a falsehood against Allah? When ye turn away from them and the things they worship other than Allah, betake yourselves to the cave. Your Lord will shower Allah's mercies on you and disposes of your affair towards comfort and ease. Thou wouldst have seen the soleil when it rose, declining to the right from their cave, and when it set, turning away from them to the left, whilst they lay in the open space in the midst of the cave. Such are amongst the signs of Allah. He whom Allah guides is rightly guided, but he whom Allah leaves to stray, for him wilt thou find no protector to lead him to the right way. Thou wouldst have deemed them awake whilst they were asleep, and we turned them on their right and on their left sides, their dog stretching forth his 2 forelegs on the threshold. If thou hast come upon to them, thou wouldst have certainly turned back from them in flight, and would certainly have been filled with terror of them. Such being their state, we raised them up from sleep, that they might question each other. Said one of them, How long have ye stayed here? They said, We have stayed perhaps a day or part of a day. At length they all said, Allah alone knows best how long ye have stayed here. Now send ye then one of you with this money of yours to the town. Let him find out which is the best food to be had, and bring some to you, that ye may satisfy your hunger therewith. And let him behave with care and courtesy, and let him not inform any one about you. For if they should come upon you, they would stone you or force you to return to their cult, and in that case ye would never attain prosperity. Thus did we make their case known to the people, that they might know that the promise of Allah is true, and that there can be no doubt about the hour of judgment. Behold, they dispute amongst themselves as to their affairs. Some said, Construct a building over them. Their Lord knows best about them. Those who prevailed over their affairs said, Let us surely build a place of worship over them. Some say there were 3, the dog being the 4th amongst them. Others say there were 5, with the dog being the 6th, doubtfully guessing at the unknown. Yet others say there were 7, the dog being the 8th. Say thou, My Lord knoweth best their number. It is but few that know their true case. Enter not therefore into controversies concerning them, except on a matter that is clear, nor consult any of them about the affair of the sleepers. Nor say of anything, I shall be sure to do so and so mañana, without adding, so please Allah. And call thy Lord to mind when thou forgettest, and say, I hope that my Lord will guide me ever closer, even than this to the right road. So they stayed in their cave 300 years, and some add 9 further. Say, Allah knows best how long they stayed. With Allah is the knowledge of the secrets of the heavens and the earth. How clearly Allah sees, how finely Allah hears everything. They have no protector other than Allah, nor does Allah share Allah's command with any person whatsoever. And recite and teach what has been revealed to thee of the book of thy Lord. None can change Allah's words, and none wilt thou find as refuge other than Allah. And keep thy soul content with those who call on their Lord matin and evening, seeking Allah's face, and let not thine eyes pass beyond them, seeking the pomp and glitter of this life, nor obey any whose heart we have permitted to neglect the remembrance of us, one who follows his own desires, whose case has gone beyond all bounds. Say, the truth is from your Lord. Let him who will believe, and let him who will reject it. For the wrongdoers we have prepared a fire whose smoke and flames, like the walls and roof of a tent, will hem them in. If they implore belief, they will be granted water like melted brass, that will scald their faces. How dreadful the drink, how uncomfortable a couch to recline on. As to those who believe and work righteousness, verily we shall not suffer to perish the reward of any who do a single righteous deed. For them will be gardens of eternity, beneath them rivers will flow. They will be adorned therein with bracelets of gold, and they will wear green garments of fine silk and heavy brocade. They will recline therein on raised thrones. How benevolent the recompense, how beautiful a couch to recline on. Set forth to them the parable of 2 men. For one of them we provided 2 gardens of grapevines, and surrounded them with date palms. In between the 2 we placed cornfields. Each of those gardens brought forth its produce, and failed not in the least therein. In the midst of them we caused a river to flow. Abundant was the produce this man had. He said to his companion in the course of a mutual argument, Further wealth have I than you, and further honor and power in my following of men. He said, he went into his garden in a state of mind unjust to his soul. He said, I deem not that this will ever perish, nor do I deem that the hour of judgment will ever come. Even if I am brought back to my Lord, I shall surely find there something better in exchange. His companion said to him in the course of the argument with him, Dost thou deny Allah who created thee out of dust, then out of a sperm drop, then fashioned thee into a man? But I think for my part that Allah is Allah my Lord, and none shall I associate with my Lord. Why didst thou not, as thou wentest into thy garden, say, Allah's will be done? There is no power but with Allah. If thou dost see me less than thee in wealth and sons, it may be that my Lord will give me something better than thy garden, and that Allah will send on thy garden thunderbolts by way of reckoning from heaven, making it but slippery sand. Or the water of the garden will run off underground, so that thou wilt not be able to find it. So his fruits and enjoyment were encompassed with ruin, and he remained twisting and turning his hands over what he had spent on his property, which had now tumbled to portions to its very foundations, and he could not only say, Woe is me, would I had never ascribed partners to my Lord and Cherisher, nor had he numbers to help him against Allah, nor was he able to deliver himself. There the only protection comes from Allah, the true one. Allah is the best to reward and the best to give success. Set forth the parable to them, the similitude of the life of this world. It is like the rain which we send down from the skies. The earth's vegetation absorbs it, but soon it becomes dry stubble, which the winds do scatter. It is only Allah who prevails over all things. Wealth and sons are allurements of the life of this world, but the things that endure, benevolent deeds, are best in the sight of thy Lord as rewards, and best as the foundation for hopes. One day we shall remove the mountains, and thou wilt see the earth as a level stretch, and we shall gather them all together, nor shall we leave out any one of them. And they will be marshaled before thy Lord in ranks with the announcement, Now have ye come to us bare as we created you? First, ye thought we shall not fulfill the appointment made to you to meet us. And the book of deeds will be placed before you, and thou wilt see the sinful in great terror because of what is recorded therein. They will say, woe to us, what a book is this? It leaves out nothing, small or great, but takes account thereof. They will find all that they did placed before them, and not one will thy Lord treat with injustice. Behold, we said to the angels, Bow down to Adam. They bowed down except Iblis. He was one of the jinns, and he broke the command of his Lord. Will ye then take him and his progeny as protectors rather than me? And they are enemies to you. Evil would be the exchange for the wrongdoers. I called them not to witness the creation of the heavens and the earth, nor even their own creation, nor is it for helpers such as me to take as lead men astray. One day Allah will say, Call on those whom ye thought to be my partners, and they will call on them, but they will not listen to them, and we shall make for them a place of common perdition. And the sinful shall see the fire and apprehend that they have to fall therein. No means will they find to turn away therefrom. We explained in detail in this Quran for the benefit of mankind every kind of similitude, but man is in most things contentious. And what is there to keep back men from believing now that guidance has come to them, nor from praying for forgiveness from their Lord, but that they ask that the ways of the ancients be repeated with them, or the wrath be brought to them face to face. We only send the apostles to give glad tidings and to give warnings, but the unbelievers dispute with vain arguments in order therewith to weaken the truth, and they treat my signs as a jest, as also the fact that they are ruined. And who doth further wrong than one who is reminded of the signs of his Lord, but turns away from them, forgetting the deeds which his hands have sent forth? Verily we have set veils over their hearts, lest they should understand this, and over their ears deafness. If thou callest them to guidance, even then will they never accept guidance. But your Lord is most forgiving, full of mercy. If Allah were to call them at once to account for what they have earned, then surely He would have earned, then surely Allah would have hastened their punishment, but they have their appointed time, beyond which they will find no refuge. Such were the populations we destroyed when they committed iniquities, but we fixed an appointed time for their destruction. Behold, Moshe said to his attendant, I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas, or until I spend years and years in travel. But when they reached the junction, they forgot about their fish, which took its course through the sea straight as in a tunnel. When they had passed on some distance, Moshe said to his attendant, Bring us our early meal. Truly we have suffered much fatigue on this stage of our journey. He replied, Sawest thou what happened when we betook ourselves to the rock? I indeed forgot about the fish, none but Satan made me forget to tell you about it. It took its course through the sea in a marvelous way. Moshe said, That was what we were seeking after. So they went back on their footsteps, following the path that they had come. So they found one of our servants on whom we had bestowed mercy from ourselves, and whom we had taught knowledge from our own presence. Moshe said to him, May I follow thee on the footing that thou teach me something of the higher truth which thou hast been taught. The other said, Verily thou wilt not be able to have patience with me. And how canst thou have patience about things about which thy understanding is not complete? Moshe said, Thou wilt find me, if Allah so will, truly patient, nor shall I disobey thee in aught. The other said, If thou wouldst follow me, ask me no questions about anything until I myself speak to thee concerning it. So they both proceeded until when they were in the boat, he scuttled it. Said Moshe, Hast thou scuttled it in order to drown those in it? Truly a strange thing hast thou done. He answered, Did I not tell thee that thou canst have no patience with me? Moshe said, Rebuke me not for forgetting, nor grieve me by raising difficulties in my case. Then they proceeded until when they met a young man, he slew him. Moshe said, Hast thou slain an innocent person who had slain none? Truly a foul, unheard of thing hast thou done. He answered, Did I not tell thee that thou canst have no patience with me? Moshe said, If I ever ask thee about anything after this, keep me not in thy company, then wouldst thou have received full excuse from my side. Then they proceeded until when they came to the inhabitants of a town, they asked them for food, but they refused them hospitality. They found there a wall on the point of falling down, but he set it up straight. Moshe said, If thou had wished, surely thou couldst have exacted some recompense for it. He answered, This is the parting between me and thee. Now will I tell thee the interpretation of those things over which thou wast unable to hold patience. As for the boat, it belonged to certain men in dire want. They plied on the water, but I wished to render it unserviceable, for there was after them a certain king who seized on every boat by force. As for the youth, his parents were people of faith, and we feared that he would grieve them by obstinate rebellion and ingratitude to Allah and man. So we desired that their Lord would give them in exchange a son better in purity of conduct and closer in affection. As for the wall, it belonged to two youth orphans in the town. There was beneath it a buried treasure, to which they were entitled. Their father had been a righteous man. So thy Lord desired that they should attain their age of full strength and get out their treasure, a mercy and favor from thy Lord. I did it not of my own accord. Such is the interpretation of those things over which thou wast unable to hold patience. They ask thee concerning Zulkarnain. Say, I will rehearse to you something of his story. Verily we established his power on earth, and we gave him the ways and the means to all ends. One such way he followed, until when he reached the setting of the soleil, he found it set in a spring of murky water. Near it he found a people. We said, Also, Canaan, if thou hast authority either to punish them or to treat them with kindness. He said, Whoever doth wrong, him shall we punish, then shall he be sent back to his Lord, and Allah will punish him with a punishment unheard of before. But whoever believes and works righteousness, he shall have a benevolent reward, and easy will be his task as we order it by our command. Then followed he another way, until when he came to the rising of the soleil, he found it rising on a people for whom we had provided no covering protection against the soleil. He left them as they were. We completely understood what was before him. Then followed he another way, until when he reached a tract between two mountains, he found beneath them a people who scarcely understood a word. They said, Also Canaan, the Mog and Magog people, do great mischief on earth. Shall we then render the tribute in order that thou mightest erect a barrier between us and them? He said, The power in which my Lord has established me is better than tribute. Help me, therefore, with strength and labor. I will erect a strong barrier between you and them. Bring me blocks of iron. At length, when he had filled up the space between the two steep mountainsides, he said, Blow with your bellows. Then, when he had made it red as fire, he said, Bring me that I may pour over it molten lead. Thus were they made powerless to scale it or to dig through it. He said, This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, Allah will make it into dust, and the promise of my Lord is true. On that day we shall leave them to surge like waves on one another. The trumpet will be blown, and we shall collect them all together. And we shall present hell that day for unbelievers to see all spread out. Unbelievers whose eyes have been under a veil from remembrance of me, and who had been enabled even to hear. Do the unbelievers think that they can take my servants as protectors besides me? Verily we have prepared hell for the unbelievers for their entertainment. Say, shall we tell you of those who lose most in respect of their deeds, those whose efforts have been wasted in this life, whilst they thought that they were acquiring benefit by their works? They are those who deny the signs of their Lord, and the fact of their having to meet Allah in the hereafter. Vain will be their works, nor shall we on the day of judgment give them any weight. That is their reward, hell, because they rejected faith and took my signs and my messengers by way of jest. As to those who believe and work righteous deeds, they have for their entertainment the gardens of paradise, wherein they shall dwell, for no change will they wish for from them. Say, if the ocean were ink wherewith to write out the words of my Lord, sooner would the ocean be exhausted than would the words of my Lord, even if we added another ocean like it for its aid. So I am but a man like yourselves, but the inspiration has come to me that your Allah is one Allah. Whoever expects to meet his Lord, let him work righteousness, and in the worship of his Lord admit no one as partner. Sri Guru Granth Sahib, verse 31 a 38 and Slok. Vaheguru's seat and storehouse in all the worlds. Whatever is stored was put there only once and will suffice forever. After creating all of creation and providing it with a never-ending store of provisions, Vaheguru has not disappeared. Rather, Vaheguru watches over and takes care of Vaheguru's creation. O Nanak, true and just is the work of the one Vaheguru. Therefore I salute that Vaheguru, who is primal and pure, has been there since the beginning, is indestructible and unchanging. Let this one tongue of mine become a million tongues, or even 20 times further than that, and with each tongue may I utter Vaheguru's name a million times each moment. Perhaps in this way I might climb the steps to the mention of Vaheguru and become one with Vaheguru. O Nanak, the fact is that only by Vaheguru's grace can we reach Vaheguru. All else is false bragging of false people. In reality, we do not have any power to speak or to remain silent. Even begging or giving is beyond our power. Life and death, too, are beyond our power. Acquiring kingdoms or wealth, which cause disturbances in our mind, is beyond human power. Through one's own power, one cannot concentrate and meditate, nor acquire holy knowledge. Similarly, one has no power to find the way to achieve salvation on one's own. It is Vaheguru who has all the power. Vaheguru watches Vaheguru's creation after creating it. O Nanak, on one's own, no one becomes benevolent or bad. One becomes only what Vaheguru makes him or her. Night, seasons, lunar days, weekdays, air, water, fire, and nether regions were all created by Vaheguru. Amidst these, Vaheguru created the earth like a stage to perform righteous deeds. On this earthly stage, there are creatures of various colors and kinds whose names are countless. All of them are judged according to their deeds on this earth. Vaheguru is truth, and true is the justice of Vaheguru's court. Panchaparavan, the approved ones, grace that court, and by Vaheguru's grace they receive the seal of Vaheguru's approval. It is there that one is judged as accomplished or unaccomplished, either true or false. O Nanak, it is only upon reaching Vaheguru's court that one discovers whether or not he or she has achieved perfection. This is the system and arrangement of the realm of virtuous duty. Now let us discuss the realm of holy knowledge and enlightenment. During its rise to the plane of consciousness, the spirit acquires the knowledge that there is not only one universe or solar system, but actually there exist countless airs, waters, fires, and celestials, like the mythical Krishna and Shiva. There are countless Brahmas who created the worlds in their myriad colors and forms. Countless are the earths upon which creatures perform their duties. Countless are the mountains and innumerable saints like Dhru, who deliver sermons. There are countless Indras of Brahman, celestials of rain, countless moons and soleils, and countless galaxies. Countless are the persons of power and knowledge, and countless are the celestial males and celestial females in their different garbs and forms. Beyond count are the angels, demons, and sages. Countless are the jewels of countless oceans. Countless are the sources of creation, and countless are their languages. Countless are the kings and emperors. There are countless people who concentrate on Vaheguru, and countless are the servants serving Vaheguru. O Nanak, there is no end to the creations of Vaheguru. Beauteous is the sphere of spiritual endeavor. In this stage, the mind is refashioned according to a very beautiful mold. It is not possible to describe the elevated thought processes of such refashioned souls, and any who tries to describe the spiritual stage of such people repents in the end. In this sphere, knowledge and mind are fashioned afresh, and one acquires the intellect of angels, sages, and celestials. Powerful is the language of the realm of Vaheguru's grace. In this state of mind, one thinks of no one else except Vaheguru. Those at this stage are the brave warriors who have overcome all temptation, and in their mind only Vaheguru abides and pervades. They are so absorbed in Vaheguru's love and devotion that they seem to be sewn into Vaheguru like a portion of cloth. This is a spiritual joining or merging of the seeker's soul with Vaheguru's adoration. Their spiritual beauty cannot be described. Such persons never die in spiritual death, and they are not cheated or beguiled by any wrong influences. In this sphere of Vaheguru's grace abide people from multiple universes, not just the world we see. They enjoy heavenly bliss because the eternal Vaheguru abides in their hearts. In this domain, the formless one by Vaheguru's self resides, and upon reaching this sphere, and the seekers are able to realize Vaheguru. They perceive how Vaheguru is creating and watching with grace all of Vaheguru's creation. There they know how all the continents, worlds, and solar systems are fashioned, the description of which has no end. In the spiritual stage, they realize how creation and after creation and universe after universe is being formed and finished, and how each one functions in obedience to Vaheguru's command. They now realize how Vaheguru continuously keeps watch over Vaheguru's creations, reflecting upon them and feeling happy about them. But, O Nanak, to fully describe this spiritual stage of truth is as difficult as biting through steel. We should make chastity the furnace, patience the goldsmith, understanding the anvil, and holy knowledge the tool. We should make Vaheguru's fear the bellows, and penance the fire. In the crucible of love for all Vaheguru's creation, we should pour the nectar of Vaheguru's Nam. It is in this way that Shabad the holy word is fashioned in this true mint of Vaheguru. But only those who are blessed with the grace of Vaheguru are assigned this job. O Nanak, by the grace of Vaheguru, such persons achieve an eternal state of bliss. This world is like a stage on which is being enacted the drama of life from birth to death. On this stage, air is like the Guru, water is like the far, and earth is like the great moor. Both days and nights are like the nurses in whose lap the whole world plays. The righteous judge, in the presence of Vaheguru, watches human beings benevolent and bad deeds. Everyone reaps the rewards or suffers punishments for his or her deeds. Some become close to Vaheguru, whereas others become alienated from Vaheguru. They who have meditated on Vaheguru's Nam toil no further. O Nanak, such persons not only liberate themselves and are welcomed with honor in Vaheguru's court, but in their company many others are also emancipated. Alhamdulillah, Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim, Allah Wabham, Dao Kadao, Fei Chong Dao, Ming Kaming, Fei Chong Ming, Ja Rastafari, Deus nos de Kies in Chele Santa Fakita Nomentum, Vaheguru Salam, Baruch Chata, Elohim, Elohim Melech Halam, Asher Katzon Bamutzot Avitivan Lasuk B'Rvai Torah, Amen. Baruch Chata, Elohim, Elohim Melech Halam, Baurei Puriagafen, Amen. Kyrie eleison, Sivamas tu Savrigate, Sabe Shata, Bavontu Sukitata, Vagabiyam, Aquaba, Upendo Namanim, Fikir Nisalami, Chinta Lamperme, Labor me, Umajika, Ubuntu Shabala Fikitka. Shishin, como Serena, Domo Arigato, Pilamaria, the Wogan Tomato, Katovishagan, Gumadagan, God, thank you for the blessings. Mata Jami Afnai, Mado, a whole long Shanti. Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Satnam, Jai Janindra, Adios, Te Chakaris, Sayonara. Taijin, Eshwaso, Agabe Kirini, Esempena Asmuje, Kela Ufred, one love and peace, happiness, liberation. All thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim Jah Rastafari.